Hola, necesitas sacar el paquete de gramática porque hoy vamos a tomar apuntes sobre el pretérito y el imperfecto. Almost all of us have grown up speaking English our entire lives, and we know that English only has one simple tense to describe events that happened in the past. Spanish, however, is going to have two, the preterite and the imperfect. And you're going to use the preterite in certain instances, and then you're going to use the imperfect in other instances, and then sometimes you can even use them together in the exact same sentence. Before we look at reasons to use the preterite and the imperfect and even use them together, we just need to review our endings really quickly. Here you can see we have our normal AR endings, EASEO, AMOSARO, and our normal ER-IR endings, ISTE, IO, IMOS, IRO. We definitely really need to have the endings down by now. The book expects us to know how to conjugate in the preterite and the imperfect, and to know and be familiar with the irregulars too. And if you are not comfortable conjugating, you need to come in and get some extra help, because we need to know how to conjugate, because now we're going to be focusing on when to use which one. And in terms of the irregulars, we have learned our 5 common irregulars. We have our twins, ir and ser. We have our rhymers, there and dar, and we have our lonely, forever alone verb, hacer. We also then learned our 5 U-stem irregulars, which are going to be estar, saber, poner, poder, and tener. That's 10 irregulars just within those 2 groups. And then we also learned our sol or our flip-flop verbs, the IR stem changers, like servir, pedir, morir, dormir, where we have the stem change only in the LA usted form and the AS ustedes form. Then let's take a look at our imperfect endings. Our abas for AR verbs and our ias for ER-IR verbs. Please note that the yo in the usted LA form is going to be the same. And luckily, we only have 3 irregular verbs in the imperfect, ser, ir, and ver. So hopefully you're familiar with all of this information I just reviewed really quickly, because now we're going to go on to when to use the preterite and when to use the imperfect. Starting with the preterite. You are going to want to use the preterite when you're deciding whether an action had a specific beginning and ending. We're going to be using the preterite if the action started and ended at a definite time. For example, la guerra empezó en 1846. The war began in 1846. That is a very specific, definite starting time. Santa Anna fue presidente de México. Santa Anna was the president of Mexico. Usually presidential terms have a specific beginning and ending. That's why we're going to be using the preterite. In terms of your leyenda project that's coming up, you can kind of think that you would want to use the preterite for the actions that occurred in your story. We're going to be using the imperfect to talk about past actions without saying when they began or ended, like los guerreros no tenían miedo del enemigo. The warriors were not afraid of the enemy. El ejército peleaba valientemente. The army fought bravely. In terms of your leyenda project coming up, you can kind of think of the imperfect as setting the scene, descriptions, telling what was going on before and during the action that's happening. This is stuff like describing, characters, the weather, habitual actions. That's when we're going to use the imperfect. And like I said, sometimes you can even use the preterite and the imperfect together in the exact same sentences. You can apply both tenses to talk about 2 overlapping events. The preterite for the action that occurred, and the imperfect for what was going on at the time. Cuando la guerra terminó, Santa Anna era presidente de México. When the war ended, Santa Anna was president of Mexico. So, what was going on when the war ended? Santa Anna was president. I'm going to use the imperfect to describe that. What was the action that occurred? The ending of the war. I'm going to use the preterite. Another more common everyday example would be, I was sleeping, imperfect, when the phone rang, preterite. Please note that the use of ser fue in a previous example to say that Santa Anna was once president of Mexico, but in this example right here we use ser, era, to say that he was president during an unspecified time. Once you finish taking your notes, make sure you think of any questions you might have for tomorrow in class, as well as if you missed anything on your note sheet that we can fill in tomorrow, and don't forget to take the Google quiz.